Cameras live.
Thank you. Welcome to the Community Services Committee meeting of March 10th, 2021. And a special welcome to alternate director Brian Harrison. I bet you haven't done a virtual meeting with us before. This will be different. I acknowledge with gratitude that we're gathered here on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. And I'm sitting here in the Coxsilo watershed at the Hubbard Cowichan Station where I can have workable internet. And the Community Services Committee, for those who don't know, is responsible for discussing and providing recommendations to the board on matters relating to regional and sub-regional services like transit, parks and trails, recreation, and so forth. So the agenda today is very short. We have just 3 reports. 2 of them are information items and 1 requires a decision. So do I have anything to add or change on the agenda from anyone? Are there any objections to approving it? Seeing none, the agenda is approved. Any corrections to the minutes of January 13th? Are there no objections then? It doesn't seem to be for approving the minutes, so the minutes are approved. And let's jump down to the 3 reports. The first report, Ms. Legault.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just going to confirm that there are no submissions for public input, period.
Oh, sorry, we missed that, didn't we?
Reports, item R1 is a report from the Finance Division on the 2021 budget process feedback, and that report is for information. And Ms. Soldera is here to respond to questions.
Thank you, Ms. Soldera. Please go ahead.
So as you can tell from the report, we did not get a whole lot of feedback, just a little bit, but if there's any more that any directors would like to share now, we will definitely include that in our follow-up report on budget feedback and direction, which will come to the April 14th committee meeting.
Any comments? Director Marsh.
Yeah, although I understand the desire to get to zero. I think that's happened twice in my 9-year career. I think it puts staff through a lot of work, and in the end, it never manages to get to zero. So that I would suggest that we would give direction to be as lean as possible rather than get to zero. So that's all I have to say. I think it's a great report. And I'm sure there's other really good ideas that are going to come forward.
Director Morrison.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Ms. Soldera. I'm looking at the 3rd from the bottom bullet on feedback on common themes. And one of the things that I found to be kind of difficult was the repetitive reconsiderations of items. I could probably go back and find, half dozen or a dozen items that went through committee, ESC, up to corporate, back, board, directors thinking that items had been settled and voted on and passed and reopened. And I would have to assume that takes, there's a significant amount of resources goes into that sort of duplication of work. Has there been any suggestions as to how an item that has been essentially dealt with can be, I'm not saying not reopened, because we should have the opportunity if there's merit in reopening something, but in reducing the number of items that they just seem to keep coming up again for reconsideration. Any thoughts on that?
Ms. Soldera.
So if I may, one of the things that we noticed this year, we went from committee to board, and then sometimes things went back to committee. And then there was another opportunity for consideration when we did the 2-day final wrap up. So we are looking at ways to potentially have the 2-day final wrap up be the board meeting, so that items wouldn't go from committee to board and then to the 2-day wrap up. They would just go from committee to the 2-day wrap up, which would also be a board meeting. Board decisions budget decisions are weighted votes, so they do need to be at a board meeting eventually. But so hopefully that will help eliminate some of the repetition. And if anybody else has any wonderful ideas, we will definitely take those into consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments? Director Acton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know that we've discussed this, but I was thinking more along the lines of the insert that's going to come, because since having that discussion, oddly enough, I got 3 different emails about it. And what people in Area B found really confusing about the circle chart, it says 25% to water services and sewer, whereas a lot of people don't have that. So I think that's like a generic pie that probably covers people in the beach estates, but it made everyone else kind of go, well, wait a minute, we don't get water and we don't get sewer. Why is 25% of our taxes going to this? So I don't know if that's something that people want to review again, but it was just you know, it has happened to me since we've had that discussion. So, or maybe it's too late even now anyway to change it for this year, and something to keep in mind for next year.
Any more comments? Director Marsh.
I liked what Ms. Soldera said, but I'm aware that sometimes things backfire, and if something passes and someone on the prevailing side changes their mind, it can be brought back to the board. So I think maybe closer to the time we should have a conversation about how we yeah, anyway, I don't want to take up any more time right now.
Director Smith.
Yes, I'd like to thank the staff for all the work that went into the budget times. I really appreciated the updates on the schedules as quickly as they were done, and also their ability to give us percentage increases as we worked along. That was really appreciated. I do enjoy the part where people can click on the here, and then they can see each meeting what was increased or what was just moved from reserves. That's really beneficial, I think, when you're pointing people in a direction to see exactly which function changed and how it was changed, whether it was requisition or out of reserves. That was very beneficial for the residents and myself. And I really appreciate all the time and effort. And I know that we probably went over our time limit on some of the items, but discussions are what we're here for, and the reflection upon the taxpayers that we represent at this table. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this might be the last chance to say thank you to Talitha. So thank you, Talitha. Brilliant stuff.
Yes, we're going to miss Talitha greatly in the next round. Anyone else? All right, Ms. Legault, can we move on to the next item, please?
Thank you. Item R2 is report from Facilities and Transit on the Transit Future Action Plan. This report is also for information, but I believe Mr. Wakeham has some introductory comments.
Mr. Wakeham.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and hello, directors. A little bit of background history here. Back in 2012, Cowichan, I believe, is one of the first communities that were able to have their 25-year Transit Future Plan completed. And now BC Transit is moving into doing refreshers or renewals in those communities that have implemented a number of the short-term and medium-term recommendations that were in that original plan. And so the concept is really similar to what you'd understand in the OCPs when they get updated or modernized, which will allow for future transit investment of new initiatives, services, and infrastructure to be prioritized. And the plan is really called, so the Transit Future Action Plan. And the goal is to really evaluate our 3 existing transit services, which of course is our conventional customer Handy Dart and Interregional, which is the current service we have to Victoria and hopefully very soon to the RDN. And identify our priorities for expansion, reallocation, or other means for the next 5 years. So this action plan is a short-term focus. It's not visionary like the 25-year original plan. And the process will look at a number of key things. Our key destinations, the high school, the new hospital coming on board, some trip times, and we'll review the routes, the ridership, and our service standards to see what's working well and which ones obviously are needing a little bit of modification or better connections. BC Transit will lead the project, and it's a 2-phased public engagement process. There will be quite a bit of broader-based public engagement. Now, it will be by virtual electronic surveys or other means, as well as individual on board, which they're calling in their document intercept survey, which is where BC Transit will have staff at our bus stops and our exchanges, and they'll be documenting data like where the busy trips are, the busy, non-busy trips, key destinations, and seeking our customer satisfaction feedback and if they have any suggested improvement suggestions. All CVRD areas, including G&H and First Nations, will be invited to participate, which was the same as the 25-year Transit Future Plan. It is a fairly lengthy and involved process, and it's going to take about a year to complete. Also, the good news is there is no financial cost other than CVRD staff internal resources that'll be put towards this project. With COVID and our ridership being down from a year ago, it might seem a bit odd as to doing this refresher now, but our team felt it was still worthwhile to stay connected with our residents and get the menu of the options for improvements that we can seek out from various groups, because those improvement items, we include those in our 3-year rolling, which we call TIPS program, which is our transit improvement and expansion plan that we request to the province. And the provided BC Transit Terms of Reference document that they gave, it outlines sort of the scope of it, the objectives, the approach, and the timelines. So I guess the interest for yourself is, how do CVRD directors become involved in the project? So to us, the directors will be identified as one of the key stakeholders, as you were back in the 25-year plan. And you can be involved either as a group or individually. We can provide you with a draft engagement plan before it goes to the public, if that's what you wish. And we will for sure seek your input on transit service issues you have or improvements. And we can do that by holding, I'm going to sort of request your preference here. We can either hold a separate open forum virtual meeting like this, a bit of a workshop, if you will, or we can simply send you the survey and seek your responses. And then after the engagement project is completed and the staff working group has approved the draft Transit Future Plan, we will then, of course, provide you with the final document for endorsement. So that's kind of an overview, but before maybe there's any questions and answers, Madam Chair, I thought it would be helpful if we can get the directors to give us their feedback on 2 items. And so I'll ask them both and then I'll go back to them in order. So one is, how do you wish to be involved at the beginning? Do you want to be involved through a separate open forum strategic group meeting? Or would you prefer more of an individual by either just simply filling out the surveys, or you can have a phone call with the BC Transit rep? So that's the first question. I'll finish the second one. I'll come back to it. And the second one, are there any particular groups, interest groups that you might wish for our team to engage with? And we'll do our best to target them. And there's lots of them that obviously we already have earmarked, which is the staff from the 4 municipalities, First Nation communities, school districts, 6879, VIU, seniors groups, Chamber of Commerce, BC Ferries, the airport, Island Health, and the healthcare program providers that Handy Dart has serviced. So, if there's various groups or other agencies you'd like us to connect, you can either let Rochelle or myself know, or if you'd like some time to consider this, you can just email Rochelle or myself as well. So, Madam Chair, if we just go back to the first question, I'd be interested to hearing the director's feedback as to how they would prefer to be involved, but I'll leave that for you to sort of chair that, please.
Certainly, we could do a round table around the screen. How about Director Sebring? Do you have an answer for that yet?
From my perspective, I'm happy with just the survey rather than a half-day meeting. I mean, that's a scheduling thing. But yeah, send me the survey and I'm happy to fill it out. Thanks.
Director Stone.
I would say the same as well. Like I've been really impressed in the past with BC Transit's engagement and the amount of responses they're able to bring through their survey systems, and they do a lot of direct engagement, obviously, as the report indicates. So, sure.
All right, Director Martman, any thoughts?
Well, the more information, the better for me as I'm new, but at the same time, getting the survey would be great. As well as I think I have a couple groups that would be very interested. I'm not sure, and I'll get hold of Rochelle and let her know who those are.
Great, thank you. Director Smith.
I think that the survey is fine, and look forward to going through it. Thank you.
Director McGonigal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would prefer the survey to start with and then move on from there once the results come back. Thank you.
Okay. Director Morrison.
Thank you. So I'm going to take a little different tact because I thought the work that Mr. Wakeham and his team of the day did on the initial transit future plan was pretty brilliant. I like going to the transit future bus locations and listening to people that were actually coming up and engaging. So yeah, I'll absolutely do the survey. I'd be interested in talking with the transit staff that are working on the project. And I guess one of the areas that I'd like to make sure, and I don't have the names and contacts at this point, but the groups that are working on dealing with the poverty reduction and housing folks that are disadvantaged, I guess, economically, so that it becomes viable for folks to use as a means for getting to work. It's the folks at the lower end of the socioeconomic scale that have been impacted the most by COVID, and those folks getting back to work and on their feet again are really important to our economy. And I'd like to see those groups that are dealing with that clientele to be contacted on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Toporowski, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm okay with starting with the survey and then going from there as well.
Okay. Director Harrison.
Yeah, this one I should commit Director Salmon to. No, the survey is fine, and let's spread out from there.
Director Marsh, do you have anything new to add? Nope. Director Kuhn.
It's fine with me. Thank you.
Director Yanni DiNardo.
Survey is fine with me, but I also enjoyed the hands-on as well, and going to the bus. I'm not sure if that's going to be feasible, but I also enjoyed the meetings too at the groups. So the survey is fine.
Great. Director Staples.
The survey is fine with me as well.
And Director Wilson.
Yep, I'll be brief. Survey, please.
Well, there you have your answer. Anyone have any more questions for Mr. Wakeham? Director Harrison.
Yes, could I just make a comment that
Sure.
as one of the original 6 who started the transit system when I was a director here, and I just want to compliment the board on how this has moved along. I think this has been one of the most successful projects, and just to see how it's growing and evolving is really quite satisfying. And good work on behalf of everybody. They did an excellent job of it.
Great. Director Acton, I realized I didn't see you. You weren't on my screen. Do you have anything to add? Okay, any more questions or comments? All right, Ms. Legault, let's move on to the third item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item R3 is a report from Emergency Management on Fire Smart Economic Recovery Fund grant application. And the proposed recommendation is that it be recommended to the board that a grant application of up to $450,000 be submitted to the Union of BC Municipalities Fire Smart Economic Recovery Fund program. And Mr. Gervais is here to answer questions.
Mr. Gervais.
I guess it would be prudent for me to ask if there are any questions.
I think it's pretty straightforward. I'm looking forward to this, though. We need funding to do this kind of thing, for sure.
Move the recommendation.
So Director Morrison's moved it and Director Stone has seconded it. All in favor? That's approved.
Thank you, everyone.
So now we have to take 10 minutes. Is that correct, Ms. Legault?
That's correct. We would take a 10-minute recess.
Okay, 10-minute recess. We'll be back at 3:29.
Camera's live.
Thank you. It's question period. Ms. Legault, do we have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No requests were submitted for question period.
Do I have any objections to adjourning this meeting? Director Marsh, you want to keep going, do you?
Well, I'm just wondering if we could do the closed now and have a shorter meeting later, but I don't know if you're allowed to do that, Ms. Legault. Nobody's going to be watching it.
We need to adjourn the community services meeting first before we have that discussion.
Oh, okay. Well, then we can't really have the discussion because we won't be in the meeting. Right? Or would we stay? Oh, gotcha. Okay.
All in favor of adjourning the meeting? Anyone opposed?